Well, Alberta is pushing back on the Liberal government's firearms law. The province says it unfairly targets law-abiding gun owners like hunters and farmers. Alberta's Justice Minister announced new measures this afternoon that oppose the federal legislation. The CBC's Aaron Collins joins me now live from Calgary. Aaron, great to see you. What did we hear from Justice Minister Tyler Shandro today?
Yeah, never boring out here in Alberta, Hannah. Nice to talk to you again. A couple things from the minister today. First off, the province here will be asserting its right to have its provincial Crown prosecutors move forward with any violations under the federal gun laws. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and potentially the more interesting aspect of this, is that the minister said that he's going to create a protocol, which basically is advice for Crown prosecutors, saying that it's not in the provincial interest, public interest, to pursue charges against folks who bought guns legally and then those guns subsequently became illegal. So that's obviously a shot over the bow at Bill C-21 and the firearms bans that have been pushed forward by the federal government. Have a listen to what Tyler Shandro said today.
There is no direction to prosecutors in these matters. There's advice through guidelines, through protocols. There's dozens of protocols that provides advice to our Crown prosecutors. There is no direction, and there should be no direction. There should be no political intervention in prosecution decisions. That is left to our prosecutors. That's an important part of our democracy.
So the minister underlining there that while there'll be advice, there'll be this protocol in place advising prosecutors not to pursue with these charges. They won't be directing them. So perhaps a fine line, some carefully worded advice for prosecutors here, but definitely a change in the state of play as far as firearms in the province.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So what about the federal government? Any response?
Well, it's interesting because there is this dance going on where it almost feels like, and this was certainly brought up a couple times in the newser today, that Alberta's looking for a reaction, looking for a response. And it was measured from the public safety minister today, asked about this. And essentially, they're going to wait and see, I suppose, how this rolls out. But I think the key here is they are fairly firm that these firearm laws are federal jurisdiction. Have a listen.
With regards to Alberta, we'll wait and see what they say, but it has been a resolved matter of Supreme Court jurisprudence that when it comes to the regulation of firearms, that falls within the jurisdiction of the federal government. And we obviously cooperate with the provinces and territories on an array of public safety priorities, including with Alberta.
Of course, Hannah, all of this made far more compelling by Bill 1 out here in Alberta, the Alberta Sovereignty within a United Canada Act, which is just waiting to receive royal assent. And of course, that's perhaps a piece of legislation out here that could be used by the province to, go against federal laws that they deemed were unconstitutional. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, like you said, never a dull moment. Always appreciate you filling us in. Thanks, Aaron.
Talk to you again.
Now, Rahim Mohammed is a freelance writer and commentator in Calgary. He's working on his master's at the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary. Now, he says Alberta's differing approach to gun ownership may present challenges for the RCMP.
In Alberta, you have sort of a patchwork of policing where you have regional and municipal police agencies that coexist with the RCMP. So the RCMP, which is a federal entity under provincial contract, is still active in Alberta. So sort of what's interesting is, if there's a directive given to not enforce the buybacks, obviously it's clear where the provincially administered police agencies would fall. This would put the RCMP in an awkward position, given the unclear jurisdiction.
That's exactly it, because I'm sitting here going, that essentially means Alberta's picking and choosing what laws to abide by, federal laws, and it puts the RCMP in a pickle. And also, I kind of smell a Supreme Court challenge to this.
Yeah, and another variable I throw in there is there's already a plan in place to create an Alberta provincial police force. To replace the RCMP in the parts of Alberta where it's still active. It's been something that Premier Smith has had difficulty building public support for because it would be a very expensive proposition. It would cost something in the neighborhood of $250 million per year. So this could be a way for Smith to say to the RCMP, okay, you're going to go along with us. You're not going to enforce the buybacks. And if you want to, we don't need you in Alberta. Either you go along with our protocol or we're going to kick you out of the province.
How do you think this plays with the people of Alberta politically?
I think it plays very well in rural Alberta, which obviously the UCP is going to need to sweep if it wants to be reelected. I don't think it harms the party that much in Calgary and Edmonton, where handguns are the bigger issue. So remember, these provisions pertain to long guns. And I think handguns are the bigger issue in Calgary and Edmonton, much like most major Canadian cities. So I think this is a relatively low-risk way for the Smith government to take on Ottawa.
How do you think this is going to play out now? Because we have this. I'm waiting to see what type of response we get from the federal government on it. But also, that is really leading into C-21 as well.
Mm-hmm. So C-21 is still a work in progress. There's still a lot of problems with C-21. So I don't think I'm going to be in a position to predict how that's all going to play out. So you're having issues now, with the First Nations Council, with hunters and sport shooters. So C-21 is very much its own animal. So I don't know if I can predict how that's all going to play out for the country as a whole, much less Alberta. But in terms of the gun buyback, so Danielle's Premier Smith has said that she hopes she doesn't have to enforce the Sovereignty Act. I don't buy it. I think she's sunk a lot of political capital into putting the Sovereignty Act in place in the first place. And at the very least, this buyback program, it can be used for Smith to signal why we need something like an Alberta Sovereignty Act in the first place.
Political commentator Rahim Mohammed in Calgary.